We've discovered patterns.
The connection was always there.
This changes everything we thought we knew about human health.
Hello and welcome everyone to Health Revealed. My name is Cory Endrulat. I am joined by Stephanie MoDavis, Scott Gordon, and Leslie Powers. Welcome back to our interview series where we will be sharing with you more amazing guests that are unique and are untold, perspectives that will perhaps shift our current paradigm of health and all the institutions in our world, from the micro to the macro, the individual to the collective. We aspire to connect the mainstream and the alternative, integrating all the different solutions, and we welcome you to participate in this whole project with us. Share your story, your resources with us. This is a fully independent project because we care deeply about our world. We believe that true healing and true freedom is possible. And in these interviews, we also want to provide you with practical action steps that you can take in your own life to better your own health. So without further ado, we have a fantastic guest, Jim Gale, a visionary, entrepreneur, and pioneering permaculture advocate whose life journey exemplifies the transformative power of personal responsibility and regenerative thinking. Born in Minnesota, known from childhood as Nature Boy for his deep connection with the natural world, Jim developed an early philosophy of goal setting that led him to become a three-time All-American wrestler and national champion. After pursuing diverse careers, including bartending in Hawaii and working in the mortgage industry, where he helped generate over $1.3 billion in gross revenue, before retiring at 32, Jim's pivotal encounter with permaculture in Costa Rica fundamentally redirected his life's purpose. Recognizing permaculture as a sustainable agricultural design science that the world desperately needed, Jim founded Food Forest Abundance to demonstrate that the embarrassingly simple solution to humanity's greatest problems, replacing chemical-laden lawns with permaculture food forests, is not only practical but economically viable and scalable globally. Through his real-world demonstration project at Galt's Landing in Florida, where barren, sandy soil has been transformed into a thriving food forest requiring minimal maintenance, Jim embodies the principle of showing rather than telling, proving that abundance, off-grid living, food security, and community healing are achievable when we align ourselves with nature's intelligence rather than fighting against it. I'll head it over to Stephanie.
Oh, Cory, that was really awesome. And Jim, I am so delighted to talk to you. And just hearing that bio, there's so much about you that I admire, but I have a deep burning question within me. What inner transformation did you have to go through, moving from your old life as a mortgage broker, having your old company, doing that, to get into this mission that you have? What parts of you had to die? What kind of ego transformation did you have to go through to get where you are today?
Thank you, Cory. Thank you, Stephanie and Leslie and Scott. It's wonderful to be here with you and all the great work that you're doing on so many levels, coming together, organizing effectively to bring solutions to the masses. Thank you for all that y'all do. So it is so simple, and it took me until about now to realize it. And that is presence. Simply setting an intention, creating a vision, and then listening, right? Asking the question, what's possible in our world? And then listening. And so my role in this now is I'm an observer and a listener. And I have went through a lot of different modalities to heal, right? To realize that this idea of ego, right? This edging God out type of idea where I think I can do better. I think I can effort and I can struggle and I can make things work. Well, I don't do that anymore because that never works, right? When I was in wrestling, when I had a goal and I loved wrestling, I kicked ass, right? And there were times in my life when I didn't like wrestling and I didn't achieve the goal. And then same with the mortgage industry. I set a goal. I didn't know what was going to happen. And then everything just unfolded. And next thing you know, I'm living on a 42-foot carbon motor yacht in the Bahamas, And then what really triggered me in 2007, I learned that the world, for lack of a better term, is controlled by evil people. And evil is just the opposite of live, right? People that are using our resources in an unsustainable way, right? And there's all sorts of definitions of what evil actually means, but I just look at it from the simplest perspective. Evil is unsustainable, and unsustainable systems die. And so when I learned that, I got into a period of scarcity. I felt pretty cool with myself at that time because I was sitting on a lot of money and I was retired. And so I studied the problem every day, all day long. I became obsessed with it. Sometimes 12 hours a day, literally, because my mind was blowing at what I was learning. And so I went through, David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Force, and then a couple follow-up books, The Eye of the I and I. And he described a process in which he went through this agonizing pain as he kind of elevated from one level of awareness. It's kind of like being born in the Matrix, right? And I had that happen about 2.5, 3 years ago, and it hurt. It hurt so bad because I was holding on to myself. I was holding on to the ego. And then I went into it and I just let it all go, and it just transmuted after 3 days of pain and suffering and agony. I just went deep into it and it went and it was gone. So long answer to a great question. Presence is the key now to everything I do.
I love that. Thank you so much. I know that full well, that efforting, I got to do it. I have to feel the world. I got to wake people up. And at some point, it's just futile. You end up burning the candle at both ends. And that art of surrender and just letting, God know I'm here for the calling. I'm here. I've shown up and show me the way. So thank you so much. Great answer.
Fun stuff.
Awesome. So I want you to break down a little bit of some of the concepts you brought up and I brought up introducing you as well. Permaculture and health. Can you perhaps define for us what these two things are in your view and how they relate?
Yes, permaculture is, as you said, an agricultural design science. Really, it's a societal design science. And it is biomimicry. It's looking at what functions well in a natural system in a healthy environment and modeling after that. Right? So you ask questions and you observe and interact and you go into a system and say, what's wrong with this? We have a lot of fruit trees in a lot of different areas in our property where the fruit trees are suffering and you can see it. And then say, okay, what's wrong with this fruit tree? In fact, we had a pastor here today, Pastor Daniel. His son is coming to school here in January, and we can talk about that here in a bit. But he's been an arborist for 33 years. And we went down to the Southern Food Forest, which is basically this no maintenance, thriving food production system that literally has thousands of pounds of food in the ground right now. Right. And 99% of that, or 98, is going to literally just compost and turn back into soil, which will turn back into more food. But the system, there's trees that have this little black mold and some scaling on it. And he said, Jim, being in this business for this long, I am now all over the United States and I see the same pattern. And the only thing that I know that it can come from is up above, the chemtrails that they're spraying. It's the aluminum and the barium and the strontium. So that's the problem, right? Permaculture teaches turn the problem into the solution, right? Like every health problem is a symptom of something that we're not aware of and maybe not paying attention to, right? So it's the same thing in this. It's like, okay, what's going on here? And then what's the solution for it, right? So I get on the phone with Pat Militich with Soil Saviors. His microbiology and Doc Will Spencer, it's a living system that you put this on and it actually eats the aluminum and the heavy metals. And the byproduct, the leftovers of that meal, are bioavailable again. So it's nature is the only thing that can heal our world today.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful. What do you think the health practitioner, right? maybe the doctor, the natural medicine practitioner, or the person who's in a lab coat, working at a hospital, pushing themselves every day. What do you think they can do when it comes to this message? Do you think they have a role when it comes to permaculture, food forest, and this vision that you have?
Again, we like to turn the problem into the solution. The problem is the idea that something made in a lab for profit and control, something synthesized that is not natural, putting that into your body. The problem is that we're going to solve our problems that way, right? That's insane. It doesn't work. And the current medical system has led us to where we are now, the sickest humanity has ever been. The number of people, kids with diabetes and depression and suicide and anxiety and all the ailments are the autism through the roof right now. And the scale is like this, right? That's the bad news, right? So now we create awareness, because the word choice is almost always misused because the word implies that there's an awareness. But if there's not an awareness of choice, then there is no choice. So our job is to help shine a light on and create awareness around the fact that synthesized chemicals that are not nature are going to add to the problem, if not completely create the problem.
Wow.
And adding on to that, you had personal experience with the MAHA campaign, right? Make America Healthy Again, where they were looking at these big systems and saying, hey, what if we can change that? So maybe you want to share a little bit of your experience and involvement with that, and maybe a step further, will it take more than that? Is that enough to shift our healthcare system?
So I engage with the Maha group every day. In fact, this morning I sent a message to Bobby Kennedy's closest 228 friends, right? And it was a message that I invited Bobby to step outside of the government politics system. Here's exactly what I said. Basically, I said, Bobby, I have an idea that I'm compelled to share with you again. And here it is, right? You have epic contacts. You have incredible people. All of us here on this chat are some of these people and so many more. You could call Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is already on your team. You could call these people and you say, here's a strategy. And we actually have it, right? And we wrote a book about it, Natural Intelligence, the Technology of Peace. And then the books you've written, all of you together, they are the strategy. We can condense those down very simply now, especially with the AI tools out there. And we can say, this is the exact strategy. And if you speak this strategy to your network and they start speaking this strategy to their networks, boom, you become the leader of the Maha movement in the real world. Because in the world of fiction, in the world of the corporation, the corpse-peration, that's failing. And everybody's just arguing about conspiracy stuff, which is mostly true, but the arguing and the distraction of it, I've learned, is a massive waste of time. I don't engage in it anymore because I already know the top level of it. So I don't need to find out which details and who's poking whose eye out. No, instead, I'm going to spend that time going into the garden and asking and setting intentions and listening while I'm creating abundance for my family. So it is going to take the people. There's only one possible solution, and it has to involve and be led by a mass awakening and a mass adoption of awareness, and then add to that stewardship, taking the poisons out and treating this earth with love and treating each other with love and service, and then everybody wins.
Wow. Wow. Jim, do you feel as though we're going to be able to do this inside the traditional political system? I mean, Bobby Kennedy got in, it was so hopeful, everybody was all amped up. Is there going to have to be a true bifurcation of people that are in actually stepping out again and becoming an outlier to that system and just again, not looking too far left and right. Cory and I were talking about this before. The distractions are many. People who have good intentions and great ideas and who are innovators are attacking their brother and sister because everybody's distracted about what's going on in the world. What is it going to take? Is it going to take a complete separation and detachment from the political structure in order for us to manifest this?
It sure seems like that based on what I'm witnessing in these strategy groups, right? The focus, again, this whole system is about taking our attention, right? And now they've gotten so good at it with this little contraption here, right? The attention that our kids, our parents, everybody in the world is spending hours and hours and hours looking at a little black box. And that's why, by the way, on Christmas Eve, which is my birthday, I am putting all my social media, I'm done. I'm getting a flip phone. I might keep this phone for a little while, but I'm done with all of the social media stuff. There might be postings, but I won't be flipping through. I won't be scrolling. I won't be answering a lot of questions this way because I would rather have people come here or, better yet, go in their backyard. Answer the question for themselves by practicing what's already out there. We don't need any new information, and we don't need new money. We don't need to raise billions of dollars and to reinvent the farming system in that way. We simply need to become aware that the best thing that we can do for ourselves is go out in the backyard, go out in the city park, go to the local school, go to the local prison, right? In fact, this last week, I'm going again on my birthday, but I went to the local transition house where there's 90 beds for homeless veterans that are transitioning from being incarcerated to living in the world again. And we are putting food systems in their backyard. They're doing it, actually. We're bringing it to them. And then they're planting it and they're spreading it. And so this is so profound because now this transition house, their backyard becomes a food production and fulfillment center. And then I'm inviting the local sheriff and the police force and the local schools and the local tax collector and the local mayor very publicly. I'm inviting them to come in and coordinate and organize around spreading the sweet potato starts and all these plants, putting them in public areas, in parks, and in all over the place, and then inviting the people to say, if you're ever out of food, here's a regenerative abundance of food. And so we turn this idea, which is a liability to our community, of a prison or a halfway house, we literally reinvent that to turn it into one of the most important assets in our community.
Wow. That's amazing. That's such an underdeveloped part of any transition is the follow through. Is what are we doing after this step? There's this space, this liminal space. And then a lot of times people end up back in prison, back in the ER, wherever it is that they're seeking that help or whatever they need. So kudos to you for doing that. Jim, you're a very brave man. How much of our lack of follow through with our progress, even in the political realms, has to do with it, with an innate fear? And maybe I'm curious, with the connections that you have, how many of these people have actually had their own spiritual awakening?
So you mentioned fear, and I consider you all some of the bravest people in the world. And so is the people that I engage with on the Maha group and these different freedom groups. And I ask to all of you, who here still pays taxes on land and labor? And if you didn't have to, if you weren't scared of the consequences, would you still pay those taxes, or would you instead direct that money into something that you appreciate more? So there's your answer, right? So it's fear is the fundamental control mechanism. And I've had a lot of people reach out, and Cory's seen a lot of these comments lately where they're like, Jim, and some of them are plain upset with me because just last week we found out that a group called Mercury Funding LLC paid my real estate tax for the simple purpose it's it's a wicked predatory system where people are allowed to pay other people's taxes, and then they're guaranteed, based on the equity in the house, they get a return between 6 and 18%. Plus, if the people don't pay their taxes and pay them back, then they get to seize the asset. It's absolutely predatory. So I'm saying no, and I'm exposing the whole thing. And I'm doing so. I've been waiting for this actually for years. It's like the spark that lit the fire. So now what's happening is these folks are saying, you got to get a trust. You got to follow this common law. You got to follow this guy. I've had like a dozen people passionately tell me what I have to do, or I'm going to lose my house. And these people are my dear friends, and I love them, and they mean absolutely well. And what's happening is they're scared on my behalf.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yep. How do you work with that energy of people unconsciously projecting their own fears onto you? And how do you maintain your lane of just being confident in your mission? How do you do it?
So once in a while, I have waves of adrenaline, aka fear. It's like a signal, and I've trained myself to be aware of the signals, which are represented in my field, right? So all of a sudden, I go when I go and I feel the goosebumps, or I'm like, okay, I feel a knot in my tummy or my throat, or I feel my heart palpitating or my third eye, right? You can feel these things.
Yeah.
And I go, wait a minute, what is that all about? Yeah. And then I breathe. The breath is my go-to tool. I'm always one breath away from presence. So are you, so is everybody, right? So that's what I do. I say, so somebody comes at me and they really use this interesting energy to like, Jim, you're not listening. And they're shaking me through the phone or through the video. And sometimes in person, I'm like, I'm listening, my friend. And that's when I settle in after the breath to calmness. Yeah. And I really want to heal their trauma. I can't do that, but my goal is to help them by demonstrating my own healing, and then help them maybe breathe into and releasing their own fear of it. And the bottom line is, my friends, I've won. It's done. The game's over. Know thyself, know thy enemy, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories. And the reason that I am not dead or incarcerated right now, and not that I won't be, I don't know what's going to happen next, but for this moment, the reason I'm not is because the strategy that we have is a fact. In other words, nature works, right? And so I always point to that. And then when we add on the school and the halfway house and all of the different solutions that we're bringing, and the idea that I'm not fighting or hating anybody. In fact, I just practically did an apology video. It wasn't really an apology, but it was more of an invitation to Billy Gates, right? And to Elon Musk and to Tony Robbins, right? Who I sent him a very nastygram message about 2 years ago because he was one of my teachers, and I just love this man. And the fact that he knew what was happening and he was scared to tell the world about it, it pissed me off for a minute. Yeah. But now I realize that that's just fear, and fear controls all of us. So, imagine let's just call it Billy G. Now, if he's looking at history, the kings and the queens and these people that hoarded resources and treated the slaves like slaves, they were brought out, like in Romania, out of their front doors and hung in the streets, right? So that's what the most wicked and traumatized among us, they believe, and in this current moment, I'm pretty sure they're right, that if they lose power and control, they will be hung in the streets. Imagine how scared they are, right? So let's let that judgment go, and let's say, you know what? You knew not what you were doing. You screwed up bad, right? And I'm not saying whatever, but the bottom line is let go of your fear and start doing good. And somebody who did real bad, if they all of a sudden broke down and said, here's my billions of dollars, we're going to heal the world. I think that would be their salvation.
Jim, how important do you think it is right now for people who do have a modicum of power to come forth and be truly, deeply honest about maybe where they've made mistakes, or just to come out of that shell and be really transparent and authentic? I think the world really desperately needs this transparency and authenticity, because too many people are waking up. And, even some of the gentlemen you mentioned, Tony Robbins, other people that I kind of used to look up to, at some point, when you do the degree of work and surrender and trust and have faith in your process, you start to see where they're limited by their own power. And it's like the respect, or you just maybe stop watching as much because you realize that maybe they are now somehow trapped in their own identity. So how important do you think it is for people to really come out and just say, hey, look, this is the truth?
Well, first of all, I want to say that we've all been trapped in our own identities,
Right.
right? I've been trapped in my own identity, and there's still moments where I'm trapped in my identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Less moments now than 2 years ago and 10 years ago and so on. But I also think that it's absolutely critical for them, for their own health and well-being, and for their own release of trauma, right? So this is a very selfishly motivated thing. To those people out there who are hoarding resources because of fear, the most selfish thing you could ever do is be selfless in this particular way. Spend your surplus to help your community, right? This is, by the way, what that one drug dealer, cocaine guy from Brazil or wherever, Colombia, did, right? What's his darn name? The big drug guy that.
Yeah. I can't think of his name right now off the top of my head. Who is that? Yeah.
So my bottom line is he spent so much money helping his communities. His communities loved him. They voted him into like the Senate or something, right? They loved him, right? And I'm not saying he wasn't a psychopath killer and shouldn't have had his end. I'm simply saying that the smartest thing that these people could do is not build a bunker
Mhm.
and then hire SEAL Team 6 or whatever, right? The smartest thing they could do is start very publicly and very strategically following the plan that we've put out there. And that is build food security and security for your community. And then you become the servant of your community. And then as soon as you make that transition, you will be revered and loved and protected by the very community that used to want to kill you.
Yeah, there used to be, I think this concept of moving from service to self to service to others is just so incredibly powerful. And in order to be true service to others, and you're in a powerful position, maybe you've become addicted to your own materialistic worldview. I think that shedding of resource and really redirecting it out into the community has to be the first step. But there's something with excess materialism, power, money that people just don't want to give it up when they have it.
And they're still under the illusion that somehow they're above BlackRock. Somehow they're not going to be wiped out by evil, right? And that's the illusion that people are waking up from faster than ever, right? These wicked people are these traumatized people. I'm not going to use wicked in this case. They're suffering great trauma and great disconnection. And when they recognize what their solution is and they become aware of it, a lot of them go through the period of complete, the stages of grief, right? And they're at this place where all of a sudden they've accepted what they've done to the world, and we've all done harm, right? When they accept it, and then they ask, is there a solution? Is there a salvation? Is there a way for me to make up for it? Right? Sometimes they off themselves at that point of depression, but then if you can get past that, back to the acceptance, boom, this is what it's going to happen, and it's already happening. We're going to inspire these people who are hoarding to do what's best for them and themselves and their communities and their families. And that is take the fiction, the fiat, the composted crappy dollars and the Bitcoin piles of fiction and invest them into the real again.
Yeah, Jim, one thing you said a little bit earlier that I thought was so profound is you were describing the sensations that you have in your physical body when you feel a projection coming onto you. And we've all worked a lot in the healthcare realm. And, a lot of those doctors and surgeons spend so much of their life under those fluorescent lights in the hospital, in the surgery room, disconnected from nature. And I just wanted to commend you and really ask you, do you think this amplification of the senses, what you feel actually within your body, is connected and attributed to your time in nature?
I am 100% certain of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like right now, I can feel a vibration and I can hear it. And I had this amazing talk with a fellow last night. And for some reason, this idea of tinnitus came to my mind, and I shared. It just popped out because that's how it works for me now. Is I don't know what's going to come next, but here it is. So I said, this idea of tinnitus. It now there's all these ads for pills and medical and pharma that you could use to stifle your tinnitus. Well, tinnitus is actually God's message. I can hear it so loud and I can feel it so richly. And I shared with him, I said, go into it and he judged it. He had a judgment of it. And I said, wait a minute. If you have it, right? Yes. So then what if you love it? Because since you have it, if you judge it as negative, does that make you feel good or bad? Well, not so good. Well, then you might as well love it. You've already got it. You might as well love it. And all of a sudden, this awareness came. And this is the thing. If anybody's got tinnitus or anything, love it. Go into it as deeply as you possibly can with all of your attention, because that's where the message and the gift is.
I truly believe that the future of medicine, I think it was, who was it, Einstein or Tesla, was talking about sound and frequency and energy. And when I was going through my spiritual awakening, I had a lot of very unusual physical manifestations that were occurring to me. Tinnitus was one of them. And when I dropped the fear and I dropped the message that there's something wrong with you, I was able to attune into just a higher way of being in the human body and realizing that, like you said, the Holy Spirit, God, is actually connecting with me through frequency, through sensation. And it helps me to be discerning when I'm in communication with other people. It informs me of something that's more sacred. But I mean, the medical system is just reeling on pathologizing our spiritual connection. And it's just so heartbreaking. So I'm so glad to hear that you had that experience, because I think when people understand something different happens to you physically, don't judge it right away. Be with it. Like you said, presence, sit with it, understand it. It's not unusual to get messages from spirit if you can just be with it. And now it's a part of my day-to-day life. But when you're first experiencing it, that's when the medical system wants to come in and bombard you with, you got a new disease. Here's a medication for that.
Yep. They'll name it and they'll problem, reaction, solution. They'll take something that's actually a gift. They'll call it a problem, and then they'll get a reaction, and then they say, and by the way, we got a drug for that.
Yeah, I've wondered often how much of our patients that are hospitalized or with psychiatric illness were undergoing a profound ego identity crisis or spiritual awakening and were misdiagnosed. And I think that we have all of these people who are just ready to pop off and reconnect with spirit, and really being just focused on gathering with people like this to let them know, hey, this heart awakening or this tinnitus or this vibration you're feeling, we've experienced it too, and it's not there to hurt you. So
Wow.
Go deep, right?
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely profound. And Scott, Leslie, I think you guys have some questions too. You might want to bring up, but I just want to say, I mean, what you're sharing is so unifying for everybody. I mean, you're saying we all have traumas, we're all having to heal and be present and reconnect with nature, and that even people who are in the so-called freedom space or think they know better than these billionaires that they attack and these people who they think run the world, it's like the reality is that they're suffering just as much as their fellow man. And, they were suffering just a couple years ago, perhaps, before they had that awakening, before they started doing research, before they started seeing what's going on. And how much of that research is really real? Like you said, I mean, we're dealing with fictions, whether it's fiat or even the alternative could be crypto. I mean, is it really tangible? Is it something we can feel? It's the same thing, I share with you, Jim, we're working on decentralized AI with Mike Adams, and it's incredible. But he also recognizes, as a scientist, despite working on this technology, the importance in emotion and feeling and the spirituality. And I think that's a core component that helps keep us balanced. One concept you always brought up to me was inspiration. And you always ask me, you said, what inspires you? Rather than saying, what's the problem in the world and what is it we have to go after, you look at the good side of it. And we even made a whole text to the Jewish community, right? A community that a lot of people in the truth community, a lot of them are attacking certain countries, China, Israel, whatever. And we're saying, no, let's look at all of them and try to see how can we help everyone. I find that amazing. So I want to applaud you on that.
I do have a question for you, Jim, and it's around psychological healing and the healing of trauma. And, just as the system is pathologizing, the spirituality and spiritual connection, there's a huge pathology of emotional dysregulation, emotional mental health problems. And I'm just wondering from your experience, what you've observed of someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis of sorts. What happens when they're immersed in nature, when they are sitting in the permaculture garden over time? What have you observed as far as healing effects?
My experience is directed into the now. And when I am present in the garden, walking around, I'm learning to be barefoot. A butterfly flies by and catches your attention. And for that moment, you have a release of chemicals in your body that are actually healing. And then I smile or something. I go, wow. And so it's this, what I think what nature does better than any other healing modality is brings us to presence, right? And then it also, with the grounding factor, that's also huge. I think that's way bigger than I'm even like. I think this idea that all of a sudden we put on rubber-soled shoes when for the history of humanity we were connected. And when I grabbed that metal device, when the guy said, "Okay, hold this," and he had this little EMF reader or whatever it was, and I grabbed it, and it said like 3 to 500. It was just fluctuating this energy that was coming from me, and it was measurable. And then he said, "Okay, take off your shoe and put your foot on the ground." I did that, and it went to 0. Like, what? Like, that is a measurable fact. And I kept doing it. I'm like, no way. I put my hand on a tree, boom, it's 0. Put my, hand on a log, it's 0. It was mind blowing. So nature is this, it brings us to presence. That's just sitting in it, right? But then you've also got the smells, right? Smells reach one of the oldest parts of our brain, and where there's a lot of generational trauma stored in a lot of cases, and the anchors of trauma. And all of a sudden, a smell can release a thing. In fact, in our Cory and I wrote the movie The New Dawn, which is now being worked on by these amazing Hollywood fellows to structure it for the big screen. One of the biggest healing things is the general, the wicked, bad, distressed general bites into a peach, and the smells go up, and it shows the visual of how the smells go, and they touch a memory of him as a child when he was a good kid, and he busts down and falls down bawling on the ground, right? And then, you've got the taste and the actual chemical inputs of these. Let thy food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be thy food. So it's like all of the healing modalities in a natural system.
Beautiful. And I think, the slowing down, right, in this sensory filled experience, right, without all of the additives of chemicals and EMFs, right? There's something there that's physiologically different that I think probably opens up the natural healing ability, and I do, I'm very firm in my knowing that our systems are self-healing if given the proper environment and stimulation.
Yep.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm 100% aligned with that.
Mhm.
Yes. I've never felt better in my life. I'm 56 on Christmas Eve. I just
Mm.
did 33 pull-ups the other day, and I don't go to the gym at all. My gym is the wheelbarrow and the shovel, and I grab these 5 gallon buckets and I walk them from one place to the next. Like I went fishing today with all the kids who are visiting from Costa Rica, and I got a fish carcass which then I the fillets are delicious and nutritious, and then I put water into these buckets, and then I carry them, and I do so with vision in my mind of, like Arnold Schwarzenegger before he lost his mind lately, but he said 1 rep with vision is better than 10 reps without vision. And so I walk with these 5 gallon buckets, and I'm just visualizing strength, and it's led me to the healthiest I've ever been.
Mm, mm. Jim, I want to say back in my old life, I used to teach yoga, and it was a common phenomenon for people at the end of class when we were laying in Shavasana, the relaxation pose, to almost every single class, somebody would cry. And we'd go over and we would sit with them and say, do you want to talk? Do you want to? And you would get the most simple answers that were so mind blowing. They'd say something like, I haven't noticed my breath ever in my lifetime. Or I've never experienced what it's actually like to be present in my body. And I'm talking about PhDs, I'm talking about highly intellectual people. So, this concept of you really stressing the intention in the moment and that energy and that beyond five sensory experience that can happen when you're really fully in the present moment. And the whole present moment rhetoric, it's hard to grasp. It's almost like it's always fleeting. So every moment is like, choose presence. Okay, now again, I'm going to choose presence. Okay, now again, I'm going to choose presence. And it's like this redirecting of everything out there, just constantly more within to your internal environment. And what are you radiating? Are you radiating and tapping into that present moment? There's just something in that present moment feels to me like the biofield or the electromagnetic field where all possibilities actually live. So I think that is actually what most things are trying to keep us disconnected from, because we're super powerful when we're actually in the present moment.
We're connected to the mind of God.
Exactly.
In that moment. That's why the present is the gift from God, one of the corniest cliches ever, which is also the most profound truth. It's just the present is where all of the wisdom and joy and awareness is. Everything else is BS, right? It's belief systems, bad science, and bullshit, right? It's worry and concern and fear and shame and guilt and all these things, right? And I'm not saying, it's fun for me to sit on my deck and visualize my pool. And I'm feeling this energy of joy in the present, even though there's not a pool there yet, right?
Yeah.
To cast that vision of the future, but then sit in the now of it like you're already in it.
Yeah. Yeah. You hear this rhetoric about manifestation and, this is what I want. And it's a constant grasping and reaching. And you're failing to really just have that great gratitude in the present moment. So it's kind of a little bit misleading when you get on that manifestation hype, because you're always saying, I don't have enough as I am. I don't have enough now in this moment. So I just love your message so much. So
Awesome.
I want to share a personal experience too, Jim. Like, I mean, obviously you've been profound for my own journey, I have to say. The synchronicity of meeting you was insane. Considering the
For me,
fact I came across you one time and then a friend invited me there and then we're all going to go together. It was just crazy how it worked out. And I never heard of a food forest before, never heard of permaculture in my life until I met you. And what we just talked about with presence, I never considered that either. Like Stephanie is right. I was an overthinker the majority of my life, and I still am. And I've been working on presence for maybe the past year. I feel like I should have been working on it my whole life. It helps me get clearer thoughts. It helps me reconnect to that child creativity that I've always had, and I felt like I was losing as I was getting older and getting more delved into the realm of thought. Taoism and your work and your message has helped emphasize presence, and it was a missing key for me. And I feel like life gives us tests upon that presence. Like, I'm starting a project locally because of your project where I'm creating a food forest with community. And I'm thinking, well, oh my gosh, I got to set up this, I got to do that, I got to do this. And I wasn't enjoying myself until I brought myself to the present and I had like the best time of my life. It's like I really did. It was like, what more could you want? You're in community, you're with friends, you're with family, you're in nature, you're like ice bathing in the river and it's just there's something about it that is profound and you realize this is what the world needs. And despite being surrounded by so much development in city-like environments, that small neck of the woods in the middle of all that development was enough to just, help open up the senses and free you. But how about noticing it in others? Because I also notice now that I have sort of that self-awareness of presence, I don't want to judge other people for not being present or not perhaps seeing some of the things that I see. So how do you navigate other people on their path while you are in that path? I mean, you can say focus on yourself perhaps, and you will attract what you need, but what would you say to that?
I would say that in the last 2 months, I really landed on the fact that all judgment is not presence. The moment we're judging anything, we're not experiencing it from the present moment. And so I am casting all judgment aside as it comes up in my awareness. And I still have habits, right? I have habits. All of a sudden, a particular series of things will happen, and my mind will go to the habit. And then my breath will catch, and I'll catch the feeling of it, and I'll back to present, let go of the judgment, let go of the belief system, let go of all of that bullshit fiction, and just sit here and listen and feel and smell and see and be in the body, which then the body expands, the energy of it expands. And Hawkins wrote about this a lot. And so did a guy named Swami Rama. He wrote a book, Living with the Himalayan Masters, one of several books that I read more than once. There's only three probably ever that I read more than once. And it was so profound when this guy who lived in the mountains of Tibet and India with these masters, and he was a master himself, and what he could experience and what he witnessed and then documented. And then his own experience, because later as he got I think it was in the like 60s and 70s, he went and offered himself to the medical system, and he said, I can do this. And they said, that's impossible to do. And he did it. Like he could control the heat in a part of his arm that had sensors on it. And he could direct heat or cool it off just by his mind. And it reframed the paradigm of medicine and so on. So I kind of feel like I just flew off track on that, but here we are.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the most radical acts of this time because it seems there's just more and more to judge every single day. So it is, I mean, even though I have personal experience in meditation and mindfulness, it's still very hard. Every day has to be a conscious choice. Every breath has to be a conscious choice of, am I going to get caught into the judgment, or am I going to stay in my presence and stay in love? I think it's one of the greatest works of our time, actually. So, yeah, very difficult.
Yeah, it reminds I'm sorry. It reminds me of what Mark Passio was saying when we talked to him a week or so ago, and 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about protecting yourself from the distraction, right? And there's a certain discipline I think that we need to cultivate to be present, and create those boundaries internally with a directed focus, right, to protect ourselves from all of the million ways that we can go off track. And I think that example of the Swami Rama was exemplifying that, because in order to, do these transformations within his own body, that has to take a tremendous amount of focus and presence with his whole internal being, right?
Yeah.
What a cool realization of what we're capable of as human beings. Are we capable of regenerating organs? Are we capable of this? And you can just see the war that would create in the world, because capitalism as we know it, the healthcare system as we know it, doctors as we know it, everything changes. And I think that's kind of this liminal space that we're in right now. It's kind of between the human potential movement taking off in a different direction where we're all kind of reconnected. But like you said, with ourselves personally, there's this grasping on with the systems of we're going to keep just taking as much as we can until we just can't take any more. So It's a
That's
bat.
what we're going through now. Great awakening is now, and the golden age is now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Scott.
So I'd like to ask you something. What would you like to say to people who are coming into this awakening and looking around for answers, and they're doing their research and they're interested in permaculture and they see the wisdom in growing our own food? At what point does that research convert into resolute action? And maybe there's a story of yours that you want to relate, or maybe you just have some really good advice here. But how do we bring that person who's, and there's a lot of them. I look out in the freedom movement and the people around Derek Bros and John Bush. There's a lot of members, not a lot of people hands-on yet. And they come in and they get, but what is it that you think gets them off the couch or out of the city and getting that land, getting going, and you know, things of that nature?
My girls are here. I'm on a podcast right now, beautiful. Is that my dessert? Is that for me? Thank you so much, you awesome girl. Love you. So what came to my mind as you were asking and sharing is it came and it went. Oh, yes, I got it. Questions, right? So there's an idea of affirmations. Affirmations, just statements. I am whatever. I am. People say I am wealthy. I am blah blah blah. That doesn't work. I mean, yeah, it might work okay, but when we ask questions, right? So let's say the people that we're talking about, that they might be in their trauma. We ask a question, that's the opposite of that, right? So if I have a judgment about something, internally or externally, I'll ask a question that's the opposite of that, right? So what's great about this is a really good one. And then I ask a question, how am I part of the solution? And when we ask questions related like that, what happens is our minds open up to all a myriad of possibilities. There's not just one statement. There's infinite, limitless possibilities. And then the reticular activating system and spirit will guide us. And somehow the answer, the solution will just be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that happened. Just a real quick example of this place. Back in 2019, I had invested everything I made in the mortgage industry and the real estate business into the solutions because I was in scarcity. And I borrowed 50 grand against my homestead here, my lot here. And I started up a business to put a kiosk at a mall. And I worked like for the first 3.5 months, I worked every day but my wife and I's anniversary. Every other day than that, I worked this mall hours, right? Because I was broke and I couldn't afford to hire anybody. And then COVID hit and everything went bye-bye. And I remember walking down the street at night and I was in trauma because I no longer had any money. My credit cards were maxed. I had debt and I had my only asset was now at risk. And I couldn't, and I had bills. And I remember asking the question, walking down the thing, and I basically asked God for help. I said, I'm doing everything I can. What can I do? And I started getting into this energy of, what's the message here? What's the message here? What do you want me to learn from this? And all of a sudden, everything got brighter. My eyes were shut and I opened them. And it literally looked like somebody turned on the brightness switch. And I felt the tears. And I got home 10, 15 minutes later. I got home and I said, babe, to my wife, I said, let's sit on the bed and meditate. I know this money is it's in our field. I know we can do it. Let's just sit. And we sat for like freaking 30 seconds. And boom, this awareness came to me that I was not aware of it. So a long time ago, we bought the silver and we put it in a safe and we mentally and physically stuck it in the back of the closet. And we said, that's for a rainy day. And in case we ever need it as an emergency. And all of a sudden, this awareness hit me and we're like, oh my God, I made one phone call and within 10 minutes, we had enough money to get to the next phase and the next phase. And people that don't have silver in a safe, that doesn't matter. The money, the energy is in everybody's field all the time. And it's a matter of asking that question, what's the message here? And then sit with that and then empower, follow the bliss, follow the flow of energy and step by step it. And everything is possible.
Jim, I think scarcity is a huge collective issue. And I think when people are in scarcity, the fear amps up, and then it's either the depression or the inability to take action or the overaction. I'm going to figure, and then you're spinning, going in the wrong direction. So I definitely know how that feels. We all know how that feels. And you're absolutely right. Asking God for help, sitting down, quieting your mind, that's when we get those revealings. So, but being in scarcity is, it can be terrifying. And for everyone out there who's watching, listen to Jim. It's in your field. It's there. It's just, you have to really align with it. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Oh gosh, you're all welcome so much. This is so wonderful, you guys. I just love your all's energy.
Thank you so much.
So wonderful. Thank you. And yeah, if there's any other questions or comments you guys want to make here, Scott, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, this is a little bit minor, but I think it's going to be on some people's minds. For example, I've been studying permaculture for many years and always wanted to get out there in the country and do it. And for various reasons, I didn't. And now I live in an urban setting in a concrete building on the 5th floor, and we do have a patio, and we got some plants going. My wife does. So I'll bet you know what the question's going to be. Permaculture is best done on the land on a scale that you can, get that flat piece with water and trenches where they need to go, things like that. A lot of earthwork, and those can make some incredible food for us. What if you're on a micro scale? And the two examples I'll give would be, the backyard permaculture, which people are doing successfully, or food forests surrounding their house. If they can get out to the front yard, it depends on where they live. But also for the people that just, a lot of people on the other side of the world, particularly, we were talking earlier, high rise. And you can grow a lot of plants in that setting, with the right stuff. So any advice for people on a small scale, or do they really need to get out and get to an adequate amount of land and maybe just do it on a cooperative basis? What are your views on the different scenarios, sir?
I think they're all belief systems and they're all a form of BS. Follow your bliss. Be present, set an intention, and follow your bliss. And that bliss will guide you into the vision that will blow your mind relative to your puny little mind grown intention. Like every day I'm like, what? How is that freaking possible? And the more I step into it, the more I follow that energy field. It's just, I'm so thankful and I feel so blessed every day.
Okay.
Yeah, well, is it, for people who are in a transition, right? Isn't it good for them to, if they're blocked on the making the big dream happen, to at least get involved in some small steps,
Yes.
where they are, right?
That's exactly right. So if the intention, what is the intention? The intention for most people is to be happy, healthy, and free, or some version of something around those things, right? And so if that's the highest level pattern, then ask questions around what next step will make me a little more happy, healthy, and free, starting right now from where I am. And then follow that bliss. Like my buddy Eric Heinzelman, who's living here now, he had an 8 foot by like a 8 by 8 or an 8 by 10 foot deck on his second floor condo. He, I was out there. It's paradise. You walk on this deck, and there's really only enough room to sit one person because it was him. It was his personal Garden of Eden. And it had like, I don't know, 25, 30 different plants, vines and fruits and peppers and all these things. And he's a chef, right? So he'd go out there every day and he'd grab some stuff that in his little personal 8 by 10 foot Garden of Eden, and he'd go cook with it. And so garden what you've got. If it's a countertop, if you're homeless and you want to grow food around your homeless encampment, just step in wherever you are and then build from there.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right. Love you.
Well-
I'm going to play tennis.
All right. I'm just wondering what's next for you. What is next in your vision?
So the one thing I know I'm going to be doing is setting this phone down. And I've played with that a little bit, and it's an interesting experience. All of a sudden, I'm doing something, and I'm like, okay, where's the phone? I get this habit that I'm breaking, right? So my next step is to really be the change that I want to see in the world. And what is that? Well, I'd like to see people turn their homes, their yards, their little kin's domains into paradises wherever they're at, right? So I'm going to be that change. Otherwise, I'm a hypocrite, right? And then I want to step into more health and more presence. And then I want to create this pool. One of the ultimate visions I have is all of a sudden there's going to be nothing, that I can imagine now, and there will be something then. But from now, I think, well, that'll probably be, I don't know what'll come after that, right? Is a pool, a 3-layer colloidal silver pool with jacuzzi tubs at the top layer, right? A little circular jacuzzi tub with colloidal silver, colloidal copper, and colloidal gold. And then 2 layers, a pool and then a pond, and then living plant filters, and then a little beach. And I imagine just sitting there. I've read a lot about meditators that just sit under a tree for like a long time. I imagine, though, I'm going to be sitting in the jacuzzi tub just meditating a lot.
I love it.
Because why? Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's a great vision.
Well, thank you
this.
so much, Jim, for joining
Thank you
us.
all.
And everybody, check out Jim Gale, Food Forest Abundance, all platforms, foodforestabundance.com. You're also easy to get in touch. I'm probably going to rewatch this one again at some point, I'll be honest, because so powerful, simple wisdom that is just, applicable to every moment in our lives. So thank you so much for sharing that wisdom with us. And I appreciate everybody out there for watching. healthrevealed.org. We have a lot more great interviews and resources there. Take care.